Welcome in! Today, we're going to try and solve a real puzzle, a mystery about what it actually means to own something. It's a story that kicks off on a deserted island, but believe it or not, it ends up right inside your computer, and it calls into question a rule so common we barely even notice it's there.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Our entire journey today starts with this one simple-sounding question. On the surface, it seems totally obvious, right? But the answer? Well, the answer cracks open one of the biggest debates in the modern world. And to find it, we need to go to a place with no rules at all.
So, we're heading to a place where the laws of society just don't exist yet. We're going to imagine a man, the famous Robinson Crusoe, shipwrecked and completely, totally alone. He's it, the only human around. So the very first rules of property aren't going to be written in some dusty old law book. Nope, they're about to be written by his actions alone. He's got to figure out how to survive, and in doing so, he's basically going to invent the idea of ownership without even trying.
You know, what's really fascinating here is just how simple this first rule is. It all starts with something you can't really argue with. You own your body. You control it. From there, you use your energy, your work, to pick a coconut that doesn't belong to anyone. By mixing your labor with that object, boom, that coconut becomes your property.
And just like that, we get our first solid definition. Property is the right to control a scarce resource. And that word scarce is absolutely key here. There are only so many coconuts on the island. If Crusoe picks one, that's one less coconut for anybody else. Though, for now, there isn't anyone else. This is the most basic rule of the island. But this is where things get really weird. I mean, our simple island rule, it works perfectly for physical stuff, right? For coconuts. But what happens when Crusoe creates something you can't hold, something that isn't scarce at all? So here's the crucial point. He still mixed his labor, his creativity, to make something brand new. It's a product of his mind. But unlike a coconut, this creation, this song, is what you might call an ideal object. You can't touch it. It doesn't take up any space. And this changes everything.
And this chart right here, this just brilliantly illustrates the absolute heart of our mystery. Let's say another person, we'll call him Friday, shows up and takes Crusoe's coconut. Well, Crusoe has one less coconut. It's a zero-sum game. But what if Friday hears Crusoe's song and just memorizes it? What has Crusoe lost? The answer is nothing. They both have the song now. The original is completely untouched.
And this gives us our first faint clue, and it comes from the economist F.A. Hayek. Unlike coconuts, which are naturally scarce, things like songs and ideas are naturally abundant. Once you create them, they can be copied forever, without any limit. So the only way to make a song act like a coconut, to make it artificially scarce, is to invent a rule, a law. Now, economists have some specific names for these two kinds of things, just like you see here. Material goods are scarce and rivalrous. That just means there's a limited number, and if I use one, you can't. Ideal objects, well, they're the complete opposite, non-scarce and non-rivalrous. We can both listen to the same song at the same time and not use it up. So our simple island rule for coconuts? Yeah, it totally falls apart when it comes to songs.
So this brings up a huge question. If owning a song isn't some natural rule that Crusoe would just figure out on his island, then where on earth did it come from?
This question, it takes us right off the island and into the pages of real history. And the answer? Well, let's just say it has a lot more to do with power and control than it does with protecting lonely musicians on an island.
You know what's really wild about this timeline is what it tells us about creativity. For most of human history, we're talking Greek poetry, Renaissance art, all this incredible stuff was made without any copyright. The idea of owning a story wasn't really a thing. Copyright's origins are actually in censorship. Back in 1557, the Queen of England wasn't trying to help authors. She wanted to control what was being printed, so she gave a monopoly to a single company.
So there's the answer to our question. We didn't discover copyright, we invented it. It was a human design, a political tool made to force limitless ideas to behave like limited coconuts. It was basically a permission slip, handed out by the people in charge.
Okay, so let's fast forward to today, where technology, specifically the internet, is putting this centuries-old man-made rule to its absolute greatest test. The number you see on screen is 6. Why 6? Well, because for 6 years straight, from 2012 to 2017, the show Game of Thrones was the single most illegally downloaded, or pirated, show on the entire planet. We're talking millions and millions of copies shared on networks like BitTorrent.
Now, you would think the head of the company making the show would be absolutely livid, right? Losing all that money? Instead, the CEO said that having the most pirated show was, quote, better than an Emmy. Why in the world would he say that? Why would the person who's supposedly being robbed see it as a badge of honor?
We're taught to think of this as simple theft, like grabbing a coconut from Crusoe's pile, but remember that comparison we just looked at? When a show gets copied, the original isn't taken away. So maybe, just maybe, something else is going on here.
Some economists argue that this piracy isn't just theft, it's a signal. Think about it. In a market, prices tell you what people want. In the digital world, mass sharing is a kind of information. It's this powerful discovery tool showing what has huge cultural demand. That's what the HBO execs saw. Not millions of thieves, but millions of passionate fans creating buzz that you literally cannot buy.
So, if technology is making this old system of forced scarcity almost impossible to enforce, what could possibly come next? I mean, what happens when you can't force people to buy coconuts that can be copied for free?
Check out this number. This is how much money the musician Amanda Palmer raised back in 2012. And she didn't get it from a big record label that relies on copyright to make money. Nope. She got it directly from over 24,000 of her fans on Kickstarter. This model is called crowdfunding, and it completely flips the old system on its head. Instead of a company putting up money and then hoping to sell enough copies to make it back, the money comes directly from the people who want to see the art exist in the first place.
And what's so fascinating is that this high-tech solution is actually a return to a really, really old idea, patronage. Just like the wealthy families funded artists back in the Renaissance, today's fans are becoming the new patrons. And this model, it doesn't need forced scarcity. The connection is direct.
And that leaves us with a big, hanging question for the future. In a world where technology allows for this direct link between artists and their communities, a world of digital patrons, does that old king's permission slip invented hundreds of years ago to control printing presses, does it even make sense anymore? That's the mystery we're all left to solve.